Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood. And this video is going to be an assembly video or how to put these pieces together. I did a brief description of the design in a live stream and had lots of questions about, hey, I didn't quite follow that. Can you go in depth? And so we're going to look at putting these together and how to get the framework and the frame to go around it. So before we actually begin the physical construction, let's take a look at this digital design in LightBurn. And this is a new design on the same concept. I'm doing a version of this for each branch of the U.S. military. And so this will be a different piece of artwork than the one I just showed you. This is the version I did for the Marines. The one I'm getting ready to show you is one I'm working on for the Army. But several of the layers are the same, and the assembly concept is identical. And there was an error that I made in the first file. If you already downloaded the Marines version, well, let me just show you. So this is the new one. This is the piece that I've got designed for the U.S. Army, and it involves the Overlord Memorial, which is the memorial for D-Day, the National Memorial for D-Day, and then I've got a soldier charging the beach, and then the flag that'll be on top of there, and then I've got two options. Oops, didn't mean to move it. That's what I meant to do. Either the U.S. Army badge or a dog tag that can go in this upper corner up here. I've got the same type of situation for the Marines, a Marine badge or a dog tag. And I'm going to improve the Marines file based on what I've learned from this one and make a few changes. First thing I did, I thought I was doing something smart. I had selected this entire image right here and locked it in position. So that was locked and it couldn't be moved. Everything was locked in place. And I was intended for when you opened it, everything would be locked right here and organized, and then you could just copy and paste what you needed into your work area. Well, what I didn't know is that the way LightBurn works, it saves the fact that these are locked images, but it doesn't save their location on the work area. So when you open this file, it may import it and bring it all locked in place right on top of your work area, especially if you have your work area right in the center. When you open it up, that's where it's going to put it. Not over to the side, but right in the middle of your work area, and it's locked in place. So that's not a good thing. You have to unlock it and move it. So I'll be modifying the file, unlocking it, and just putting it over to the side and being done with it. And I won't bother doing that with this one. But the way this is set up, there are multiple layers here. You can see that I've got 4 tool paths of 300 by 300, so it's 4 sheets of material that will be used to generate this particular project. This right here will be a solid background. I'll paint that solid white. This one down here, I will mask off. I'll paint the Union blue, and then paint the rest of it in its entirety just a solid red. These are slots cut out so that it will allow the white to show through. So I'll have a red, white, and blue for my flag. I'll glue these two directly on top of each other with no spaces between them. Once those are glued up, then I'm going to put 4 of these corner pieces right here around the flag. 1 on each corner of the flag to just raise it, the thickness of the material. Once that's raised, I'll then come back in here, and this one, this is actually one piece. this outer frame. Here we go, right there. That'll all cut out, and I'll have the overlord that will glue on top of those 4 corner pieces. Now there's not going to be any support behind this overlord piece, so I need to cut out from right in here. I need to add them now because I'm getting ready to assemble my first one. So as I'm voicing the instructions out, I realized I didn't have this. But all I need to do is come in here, get my rectangle tool, and I'll come right here and draw out a rectangle. In fact, I may even go, let's bring that down to where I can see it. There we go. And we'll put it on the red cut path. Let's see, select 26. No, okay. Go to line mode. Now I can select it. There we go. Wireframe mode, I should say. And I'm actually even going to, I'll take this on up just a little bit above that. Then I'm going to duplicate that. Control D, duplicate it, move it over here. Or you know what? No, I can't do that. I'll take that back. I started to do it just an offset of the overlord, but this is just as easy. So now I will come over here, draw out another rectangle. It's not quite the size I want, but I'm going to edit it. I want to bring this inside here. There we go, like that. And then bring it up. And let's weld these together. In fact, I can just do that and weld and weld. And I want to strengthen this, so I'm going to just go into node editing and just move. Actually, I'm going to come up here so it don't move, and insert a node here and insert a node here, and then grab this node and just bring it up. Actually, you know what? I'll just hit the letter D to delete it. There we go. Come over here and hit the letter D for delete. And that just strengthens that up. I'll take this in a little bit. I'll bring this in. It doesn't need to be quite, let's go close to the edge. Same can even be said for over here. It don't need to be like that, because I don't want it visible from the edge of the material. That needs to come in. Bring that one in a little bit too. And it's not symmetrical here, but that's okay. We don't care. This is just a support piece that we're going to glue on the back of that. And we'll take these up just a little bit. There we go. Now I just realized that that right there is not going to cut out on my piece in my scrap, so I'm going to fix that. What I'm going to do is I'll come down here. I'm going to draw a straight line. It's on a cut path. I'm going to draw a straight line. Then I'm going to take and put that right in the middle of that. There we go. And now what I'll do is I'll use my scissor tools. Come down here and I'm going to cut all of that away. Cut that excess off and that excess off. So now I do have half of it. And will that fit up here? Yep, that'll fit up here. And now that it's half, I'll just duplicate it. Control D, move it over here and flip it. Put it in here. There we go. Now it is symmetrical, and those two pieces will cut out and fit right on the back of the overlord to where I can have that support. And so I don't have to worry about it being exactly centered and not having room. I'm going to modify it even again. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to reduce this, bring those in a wee bit. So what if there's a gap between them? You want to have room to glue them up there and not worry about them being perfectly centered. Duplicate it once more. Go ahead and flip it and then move it over. There we go. Now that's support for the back side of the overlord. So those will get glued on the very bottom or the back side of this, and then those will be glued to the red layer of the flag. So now to be spaced off, you won't see the support. You'll have a shadow between the overlord monument and the flag. Once that goes together, I'm going to take 3 of these corners because I've used 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That leaves me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. So let's see. I'm going to use 3 of them and glue them on top of the overlord. But I'm going to glue those at the northwest, southwest, and southeast corner of the piece. The northeast is where I'm going to glue whichever of these I want to use. Do I want to use the dog tag or the Army logo? And the dog tag, you can see I had to turn it a little bit to get it on the piece. Once you glue it in place, well, in fact, we'll just take this, Control D, duplicate it, bring it over here. And first, let's get it in its right orientation. So I'm going to bring it down here. And now I'm going to use Control 2 to rotate that by clicking right there is my first pivot point. Then I'll grab this and bring it up here to there. There we go. And now that's back to 90 degrees. Get rid of that tool path. So now when this gets glued into place, put that right in the corner. There you go. The dog tag will sit at a little bit of an angle right there in the vacancy above the overlord. So that is intentional, what you see where this is here. But by rotating it, it does 2 things. It allows me to get it onto the piece of material. And now this text is, you can edit this text. If you go in and we need to, oh, it's all locked. Arrange, I forgot everything. In fact, let's just unlock it all. I was doing that as a demonstration and now I've done messed myself up. So unlock all this, arrange, unlock, and now come in here to the text. The text is grouped with all of it right now to keep everything locked in place. So you'd ungroup it. And now I'll hit ungroup once and you can see the text now is just single dashes. It doesn't have the dot, dot, dash, dot, dot. So that's unlocked. So now you can use your text tool to come in here and start changing each line. Now I have it aligned left, so everything should stay aligned correctly. You shouldn't have to do anything about the alignment. Just backspace out of it and put in there what you want it to be. Come down to the next line and backspace to the beginning, and it's going to keep that alignment for you. And let me put in my social security number here. Not. And that'd be fine. So it's easy enough to change and edit these out to be whatever you need them to be. And you won't mess up the alignment because I took care of that for you when I set everything up. So let's put that back. There we go. That's all back to grouped. So you've got 3 corner pieces plus your artwork glued on top of the overlord piece. Now those corner spacers are there. Now it's time for this down here. Now this is the next layer, and it's the soldier charging the beach. Now there's 2 corners on it, so we need 2 more corners. So I've used 4, 5, 6, 7, and I need 2 more. I need 9 total. So did I get my corners right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, I did that right. So now you'll use the last 2 remaining corners up here in the top corner, and then glue this across the bottom. Now I did this one this way because his being in the center position is crucial for the alignment whenever it's set on top of Overlord. So to keep it from being questionable or off-centered, I made it this way. Still, I'm able to get that entire layer out of the scrap piece from this remaining piece. So here's how many layers are on this page here. There's 4 of those is 1 layer. This is 2 layers, 3 layers. There's 3 layers on this one page right here. One piece of 300 by 300. So that works out that way. That'll put him on top. And then I've got this one, and that takes care of that toolpath, this, and all of this. So now we've got this. But this we can't really start making until we've got this assembled. And the reason I say that is because your material thickness between all of your layers potentially are going to vary. They're going to vary just a fraction of a millimeter. And then if you're going to paint this and do the flag like I've got here, where I've painted the union and the white and the red, they're painted up those 2 layers. Your paint thickness is also going to add thickness to the material once you go to glue everything together. So if you want a really nice fit and finish with this outer frame and boxing, then you need to get everything assembled and then measure your thicknesses before you start trying to cut out the frame part. And the way that works, once you've got it all assembled, these pieces here, these 4, these 2, and these 2 are the outer wraps that are going to cover up the sides of your layers. Now these top 2, the length of them, or as LightBurn's going to refer to them, the width in this case, is perfect. Lengthwise, these are the right length to go on the side of your material, regardless of the thickness of the material. However, the height of all 4 of these pieces is going to need to be changed, and I've got that in here. It says the height of the outer pieces is determined by how many layers you used and your material. So you may not want to put all the spacers in there and create the extra gaps. You're going to need to use at least 3 to be able to put the medallion or the dog tag in there, because that's one separate layer. But you may not want to space the other pieces off. I don't know. So depending on the number of layers you use and your total thickness of your material once you've got it fully assembled is going to determine what the height of these pieces need to be. So you may need to change these. Right now it's currently set at 12 mil, and it may be that yours turns out to be 13.1 mil. And if that's the case, then you're going to need to change all of them and move them apart so they can cut out without overlapping each other. So your height is going to be determined on what your piece is fully assembled. The length of these 2 is just fine. These 2, you have to do a little bit of thinking. This is the top and bottom piece. And the top, when you look at it, when you look at the top, it's covering the 2 edge pieces. But when we look at the side, you see the top and the bottom, because they sandwich over these. And that's why this one, the length of this one is fine. That's not going to change. But these will change depending on the thickness of your material. So I've got in here, add twice the thickness of this material to the width of these 2 pieces. So if this 300 by 300 sheet that you've got on the table, you're going to cut these out of, is measuring 3.1 millimeters, then you're going to add 6.2 millimeters to what is the width here, which is essentially the length of these 2 pieces. So you're going to add twice the thickness of the material to the width, and that will allow it to cover the side pieces when you glue them up. So that takes care of these edge pieces. The frame itself down here. The frame, I've got this inner part about 1.5 millimeters smaller than the inner part of these. And that helps hide those layers once it's assembled. So this is just a little bit smaller. The outer one, I've got notes here, says do an outward offset, the thickness, there we go, do an outward offset, the thickness of the material of the T1 toolpath for the outer cut. You may need to adjust the engraving position. The engraving position is the rope frame I've got around here. That's optional. You may not even want the rope frame. But I've got a T1 toolpath right here that is the exact size of this piece right here. So that, if we look, is 287.02 by 203.2, 287. If I come up here and look at the T1 toolpath, those numbers shouldn't change. And I didn't get it. There we go. 280. Yeah, they don't change. That's the exact same size. You don't want it to be exactly the same. It needs to be offset the thickness of this material. So if this material was 3.1, you're going to come in here, grab that. You're going to do an outward offset of the thickness. And in this case, I said we're going to do 3.1 because that's how thick the material is. Do outer shapes only. It doesn't matter because it's only one shape. Select the resulting objects. Delete. Well, we're not even going to delete. We'll leave that on. And we don't do corners and tell it OK. And since we had select resulting objects turned on, now we can just go straight down here and tell it to go to the cut path. So now I've got that cut path and that cut path for the outer part of the frame. Now, see how the rope is not quite centered in between these pieces? You can do all kinds of fancy things with squares and trying to figure out, but it's just as simple to do it by eyeball. Just do what looks good. You know, come up, select the frame, hold control. Holding control is crucial because when you hold control, it's going to move everything at one time, both sides, all four corners. Holding control, get on that corner right there, and you just start shrinking it in until it looks like you've got that centered up. And right about there is looking pretty good. And actually, that looks pretty good here to here. It's a little bit tall up here, so I can come up here and come to the center one, which is here. Still holding control. Come down and bring that down to where that looks better. Between, and that way that's going to engrave in a centered up position. And if you want to make sure it's perfectly centered, now that you've got it selected, just hold shift and select that and tell it to go to the center. Oh, something's messed up. I got to, what is that? Control Z. In fact, I just noticed that's grouped with something that probably shouldn't be. What is it grouped with? Got to fix that too. So, in fact, I'm going to say Control D, duplicate it, and bring it over to the side. Oh, that's up there. Okay, I don't need that up there. So let's delete that. Come back in here, select, ungroup, and get rid of that corner piece, delete. And now, if I take that, it should take the frame, hold shift and select that frame and tell it to go to center. That tells you it's perfectly centered up. And double check visual. That looks, in fact, if you want to turn off the T1 so it's not, there you go. Now you can see that looks like that's pretty centered and that's pretty centered. You've done your offset. So now this is going to overhang a little bit in the front, but this should fit perfectly around your outermost perimeter and glue up and give you a really, really nice frame. So that's how the design works in LightBurn and in theory. Now let's do it in practice. Okay, so I've got all of my pieces painted and prepped and ready to start the assembly. And that was a process in and of itself. But I've got the Overlord here, and I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but it took a while to do this piece because if you see, you can see there, the lower portion is just barely hit with the laser, just enough to discolor the grains in the wood, and that gave it some character, kind of like the granite or marble in the actual statue. And then the top pieces are done with a heavier engraving and no engraving because the three were white granite or white marble, and then the other two were a darker stone. I don't know what that would have been, but that gave it some realistic characteristics. Oh, there we go. And that took a little while on the laser to get that done, but I'm happy with the outcome. But that'll glue up, and I've already glued up the spacers on the back side of that. And that's going to go on the actual face of the flag itself. This piece is got a little imperfection in it, but I believe it'll be hidden by the flag. But if not, it'll be all right. But that's just a solid piece of white with the gloss coat on it. This required some prep work. I taped off everything except for the union and covered it really, really well. And then actually before that, I put a coat of sealer or a clear coat on it first, sealed everything, then taped off the union area, taped off everything but the union area, several coats of blue on the union, then untaped that, waited for everything good and dry, and then taped up the union and painted the entire piece red. And then once that was good and dry, unmasked the union and several coats of clear lacquer on that. Now that will be glued up on the face of this, allowing the white stripes and the stars to show through, like so, and then the next layer and so on and so forth. So let me get my glue set up on these and we'll get those glued up. Okay, got that glued up. I just put some glue in the corners and tacked it up, and it's still a little damp, but the places where I've got my fingerprints is going to be covered up, so I should be okay. So I got that done. Now that that's on there, I've got to put the Overlord on top of the flag. Now to do that, clean up a little bit here. The Overlord has the spacer on the rear, so I need to put 4 spacers on each of the corners. Now I can do that by just gluing them up on the back of this or gluing them to the flag, either way. I think I'm going to opt to put them on the flag itself. So I've got the flag, and I'll put the corners on the flag and continue to build up from there. So I'll take these and a little dab of glue on each of the corners and glue it to the flag. Then once that's set, I'll have to come back and do the same thing on the other side of the corner and glue the Overlord to this. Okay, so now I've got those corners glued into place. Now that is going to get this glued on top of that, like so. So now I need to put my glue on the risers of the Overlord, in the corners. So that's glued into place. Everything's nice and flush on all the four corners. And now I need to do the medallion. I'm going to do that one on a layer like that with four more corners, or three corners I should say, on the other three corners. So continuing to build this up one layer at a time. So there you have the next layer. Now on top of that, I will do the soldier. Here. Soldier gets glued up on that layer, and I'll need two more corners that are back behind there to go on these two, and that'll give the last dimension of that before needing to then I'll do I've decided to add another layer to space the top frame out again, so I'll glue this up, and then I've got four more to glue up on top of this piece. So let's glue the soldier and two corners up there. So I'll have that soldier and these two corners on the next layer. So there's the next layer. Now it's important to note that when you're gluing this up, using these corner pieces like this, those are your limited glue points. So when you glue this bottom piece on with the soldier, the only contact points are on the two corners of the previous layer. So don't bother wasting any glue along the bottom middle part there, just on your corners. So it's starting to come together. Now I'm going to put these four pieces on the top corners. Then I'll use that to measure the overall thickness of the actual piece, so I can start to cut out the frame. All right, so those last four were totally optional. I wanted it just to give it even more depth to my overall piece, but that's starting to look really good. I'm liking how that looks, but you know, if you didn't do the spacers and you just put everything together without the different layers, and you only had a 1, 2, 3, you put the medallion on the same piece with the overlord and the soldier there, you could actually do this with 1, 2, 3 layers. You could have 3 layers to make this same exact image, but it wouldn't have the depth and the presentation that you get with having all of the extra layers on this piece. And you can see there we've got now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think that's 7 layers, I think. And what I'll do now is take my mics, if I can find, there they are, and actually measure the thickness of my piece and use that to plug in the dimensions that I need for the width of the side pieces and make my frame. So let's do that now. So with the 7 layers glued up, if I measure my total thickness, and I'm going to measure all 4 corners, just make sure that with the paint, the glue, that I've got the best average or the best measurement for all 4 sides, or all 4 corners. So the first measurement, and I'm even going to measure it here and then here to make sure that's, and then same thing, I'll take 8 measurements around here and just see what I've got. So About dropped it. That one's measuring 20.7 mil, and 20.8 mil. .8, and the last one, that's 20.7.5, 20.8. So, and just for giggles, we'll measure it this way too, and it's going, so it should be 20.7. And I'm not squeezing really tight on my calipers, 20.9. But I think 20.8 is what I'm going to go with. Yeah, because that one's 20.6. And 20.7. I'm going to go with 20.8. 20.8 mil is my, what I'll say is the average thickness of the piece. And that's what I'm going to use for the width of the side pieces. So let's jump over here to LightBurn. And if I'm going to use 20.8 for this, it says the height of the outer piece is determined by how many layers you used on your material. So I'm actually going to delete more. Actually, those are all grouped. So let's ungroup it. I'm going to delete one of these, and I'm going to delete one of these. And I'm going to tell that it needs to be, unlike the aspect ratio, the height is 20.8 mil. I'm going to need two of those, and this one, let's put the anchor point at the top. Well, let's put it, yeah, at the top center, and 20.8. All right, that kept it centered up, but it's still going to be, I need to work on my spacings, so I'm going to bring this all the way up to the top of the material and put it in the center. There we go. And then I'm going to bring it down 3 millimeters, 1, 2, 3, actually we're going to 5, 4, 5. Now I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it. It didn't duplicate. Control D. Or did it duplicate? Nope. Because I'm hitting Shift. Stupid. Golly. Control D. There we go. And now bring it down. And then I'm going to hold Shift and select the original and Alt Shift V to align it to the vertical center. There we are. The vertically aligned to each other. Now those are butted up against one another. Here I'm going to, in fact, I'll go ahead and move this one up to that one. So select that, hold Shift, select this one, Alt Shift V to send it up. Now I will duplicate this one, Control D, space it down, hold Shift and Alt Shift V to align it to there. Now those are going to cut out and be fine on that material. In fact, I can bring it down a couple mil. Actually, I don't know where I can bring it yet because I need to do my outer perimeter of the frame. So now I need to measure the thickness of the material I'm going to cut this from. The thickness of the material was irrelevant when it come to that. I needed the thickness of the piece to get the side pieces done. But for the frame, I need to know the thickness of the material this is going to be cut from to determine the size of this outer piece. So let me grab a piece of material. And we're going to mic it. All right. And I'm going to take measurement in a few different places. And I got 2.7, 2.9, 2.8. Quite a few variations in this. 2.7, 2.9, 3. There's a lot of variations in this piece. 2.9, 2.9, and I think that's what I'm going to go with. 2.9. Now that I'm using two hands to get my, yeah, 2.9. It's not as bad as I thought it was. I just trying to do it one-handed and then not good. 2.9. 2.9 millimeters is the material thickness that I'm working with. So now I will take and select my toolpath and do an outward offset of 2.9 millimeters. Outer shapes only, where it's only one shape, so it's irrelevant. But outer shapes, select the resulting objects. Do not delete the original because I need to keep that toolpath there for future reference. I do want to do corners, and I can optimize and simplify results. Say OK. Now that I chose to select the results, I can just click on the cut path, and now that's on the cut path. So now I've got that and this as the material, the width of my frame, the size of the outer piece. So now I can look to see how well is my rope, and I'm not hating it. I mean, it's off just a little bit. So if I select the green rope frame, and I'm just going to hold control and that corner, bring it down just a little bit. And I'm thinking I like that. In fact, let's turn off that T1 toolpath. There. That makes it a little bit less confusing. And that looks pretty good. And if you really, really, really wanted to be particular about this, you could come up here to your rectangle tool, come right here to the corner, and draw a rectangle from that corner to that corner. Now that you've got that, come back to your pencil tool and just draw a straight line this way and draw a straight line this way. And let's take and select this one and tell it to go to the center of that rectangle. Take this one and go to the center of that. It's probably actually a square. Centered up. There we go. And now you've got a bullseye for where that would be, and you can look to see in that circle. You know, the star is not a good judge because the star is a little bit of an irregular shape. But if you really, really wanted to get specific, you could take, and let's go to wireframe mode. So I can select just that right there. I'm going to need to ungroup this green in order to get just that one circle. So I'm going to ungroup, and then I'm going to come in here to this cross point right here, and I'm going to draw a perfect circle out by holding Control and Shift, and it'll draw a circle out from right there at those crosshairs. Now I've got that selected. I'm going to hold Shift and select that circle and tell it to bullseye that circle. And you see it's just off just a little bit. Very, very little. So now if I want, I could turn off, what have I got down here? I got red. So don't show the red and don't show the toolpath. So now I'm only showing the green. Select all that green and group all that back together. Turn those back on, leaving the red T1 toolpath off. And now I can see that that's just a little bit off. It looks like it's actually pretty good horizontal or vertically. I need to change it horizontally. So if I come down here, and actually I'm going to make that circle bigger so I can see it. So I'm going to grab that, holding Control. I'm going to just bring that out and make it bigger. So I can zoom down here, select just that, and holding Shift, or holding Control rather, will bring it in just a little, oh, take that back. And I should have actually locked that to the green. Control Z, undo. Because it's so minor, it's hard to even see. So I'm going to make that even bigger. I'm really splitting hairs now. What was it? Pedantic? And this is how the videos get really, really long. Hold shift, group it with that. There we go. Now that's grouped. Hold shift and bring that in. There we go. Holding control rather. That brings it, and that looks like that's pretty well centered up there. I'm happy with that. Now that is pedantic, and it is going to be a perfect placement. I can now delete the square, delete the lines, delete that circle. Oh, didn't want to do that. I got to ungroup it first. Ungroup that once and select the circle and delete the circle. There we go. Now if I put it back into field smooth, I've got that perfect placement of my rope. I've got my sizes for that piece. And now if I want to, I can bring those down a little more from the edge of the material. And cut that out. Now this is going to take a little bit to do for the engraving of the rope, but in fact, let's look here. Let's look at that preview. It's 33 minutes to do this engraving as it is, but by using the flood fill in the advanced tab, I got flood fill turned on. You can see that that preview shows 33 minutes. But if I went to regular fill, take that off, and look at the preview, now you're talking about 52 minutes. So it's almost twice the time not using flood fill. And turn on the traversal move so you can see. There's your standard fill mode, and you see all the traversal moves, all that movement back and forth. We put it in flood, oop, wrong one, go to flood fill, there we go. Advanced tab, flood fill, okay, preview. You don't have all of those traversal moves back and forth. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to get this on the Roly and get it started, and in a few seconds for you, 33 minutes for me, I'll have this piece ready to glue back together. Okay, so here is another opportunity to learn from my mistakes. I make them all the time. I forgot that I was doing this engraving also at a much higher speed than I normally work at and able to do that in 33 minutes. So I didn't change the time or the speed when I went from an hour to 33 minutes by simply doing a flood fill. But I was using a higher rate of speed than I normally operate at, and that caused the laser to have a hard stop just then. You've seen that. So what caused it, and what do you do about it? Well, what caused it was because I was traveling at a much higher rate of speed with the overscanning turned on, which you should use, but my overscanning was going to travel beyond the workspace, and it caused the laser to go. So how do you prevent that? By looking at your preview and paying attention to your traversal moves. And I did not do that. So if I switch back over to LightBurn and show you, this is just as I sent the job to the laser just now. And if I look at the preview, if I would have paid attention, right there, See, it did okay. That's why it did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 passes and then stopped. Because eventually it got to here. The green line is your work area. And when it tried to go out the work area, the laser said, nope, we ain't going to do that. So I look here and I'm like, all right, that's only a few millimeters. I'm going to move my material 10 millimeters on the space of the bed and then just use the move tab to move my artwork on the work area. So let me switch and do that now. So there is the material. Using the numbers across the front of my honeycomb, I'm just going to move it over 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters. Well, and that's actually even started to star. So I'm going to flip it and get that up there and to where it's in the waist area. Bring that material right back down here and put it 1 centimeter off the corner. Now moving that over 1 centimeter, I need to move the artwork on LightBurn 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters over. So I'm going to select this entire piece, go to my gears, go to my units and grid, not my grid, units and grids, and there's my shape, my movement tabs. I'm going to make that arrow 10 millimeters, say OK, and now just use my arrow over one time. That moved that entire piece over 10 millimeters. And now when I preview it and look at that corner where I had the problem, see all my traversal moves are inside. I don't have to worry about down here at the bottom because I'm moving back and forth on that X-axis. It's only when I'm on the Y and it's traveling up that side was it going to be a problem. So that's all inside the work area. I've eliminated that hard stop issue. So I show you my goofs, I show you my errors, and I show you how I fix them. So hopefully you're taking a lot from the video and you're learning how to do things. Maybe this isn't the design for you, but the techniques and the tips are going to be usable on any of your designs you're creating yourself, and if you decide to take this and modify it. So now let's get back to engraving.
There's a Hobo on YouTube that'll go where you pay to, laser and lots of wood. He's got a glint in his eye and a smile on his face as he burns his designs with his Roly laser. Hobo with wood and his Roly laser, lighting up the night with great flavors. It's a funky show, you gotta see it to believe it. Hobo with wood and his Roly laser.
Okay. Let's get this off the laser and test fit the pieces. Good clean drops. Not waste. Good piece of material. And let's see here. Let's start with the top piece. All right, the top piece is going to be the last piece you put on because you don't know where it goes. because it's going to overlap on the inside, so it won't line up with the corners on the inside corners, and there's no outside corners to line up. So you can't start with a top piece. You can't start with the top and bottom piece because they are also going to overlap the side pieces. But you're like, okay, well, where do they need to go? Did I mess up? I think I failed to add the length, because that feels right. I didn't add the length to those. I didn't follow my own instructions. Let's check the side pieces. Side pieces are perfect. I forgot to add twice the thickness of the material to the top pieces. Thought I did that, but I didn't. But that's okay. I got plenty of pieces around here to cut more out of. I got to check my instructions there and see. But those, see that right there, adding that piece to the side makes all the difference in the presentation of that piece. Even if you didn't do this little corner spacers, just having 7 pieces of material edges showing, that just looks so much cleaner and so much nicer for a finished piece. Get it lined up. There we go, like that. So I'm going to glue these up and then check my top pieces again, because these have got fixed positions that they are supposed to be in. So let me glue those up and then I'll double check my top and bottom. I'm going to use a little activator to set it up. All right, there's one side piece on. Now let's glue up the other side. And then double check those top and bottom pieces. I think I just ran out of glue. Ran out of super glue. Got plenty of wood glue, but these are so small pieces. I like to use the super glue on this, and I got enough there. Now let's get this on here. Just make sure you don't glue your fingers to it. And my activator. And that's on. So sides are done. But now I got to double check that top. I may have forgotten to add for the extra length. And I did. Some of y'all watching the video might have caught it in the live or while I was doing it, and I failed to do so. But that's okay. I've got plenty of pieces laying here that I can cut that from. So let's go back in here and look at where I messed that up. So let's jump back over to LightBurn and correct my mistakes. Told you, it's mistakes and all in these videos, guys and gals. So let's put that cap on that and jump back into LightBurn and take a look where I went astray. Alright, so up here is my original piece, and those are grouped together. Let's ungroup all that, and these were 287.02. 287, yeah, I did not add for that. I was so worried about the other pieces, I failed to follow instructions. Add twice the thickness of this material to the width. So I went with 2.9, and with the little bit of gap that I got on here, I'm just going to round everything. I'm going to make it just 3 mil. So I'm going to add 6 millimeter to that width and check that. See how that works. So if that's the intended width, I'm going to come up here, aspect ratio unlocked, and I'm going to add 6 mil. Say plus 6. And do the same thing to that one down here. Could have done them both at the same time. Plus 6. So now I need to cut out these two pieces, and since this was a duplicate of that, I'm done with the rest of it. I think I'm gonna grab, actually, you know what, I'll just duplicate that, Control D, duplicate it, bring those two over here, and then move this entire piece out of the way for a moment, just in case I need to go back. And these two pieces, my material width is 300 mil wide, so I'm a total of 293. So I need a full piece of material that I can cut those two pieces out of. And here is a piece that had one of the flags cut out of, so I can use this top bar up here to cut those two pieces out of. So let's put this on the Roly and cut these out and try again. Like I said, you get to see my mistakes and all. So I got those cut out and to the correct size and got everything glued up. So there's the back. You see how it's nice finished edge around the perimeter. And then the front. I'm really, really happy with the way that turned out. There we go. Nice logo. All the extra layers giving extra dimension and depth to the piece. And then top, sides, bottom. All trimmed up, looking really good. Nice finished piece. So that's the Overlord in honor of D-Day. The D-Day National Monument in... starts with a B, and it's in Virginia, and just went totally blank on the city. They had the highest number of losses in the on D-Day, Normandy, per capita than any other city in the United States. That's why the National Monument for D-Day is located there. And that is an exact replica of the Overlord, because Overlord was the name of the troop movements. That was my brain has just shut off. I've been doing too much today. Might have been doing too many painting and too many gluings. So that's an explanation of that design, how it goes together, and I've done now for the Marines and the Army. I'm gonna work on the Air Force and the Navy, possibly even the Coast Guard. Don't know what they have. If you've got suggestions on monuments you'd like to see on some of those, put them in the comments. I'm going to do for the Air Force. I'll probably do the monument for the Thunderbirds, where they've got the burst monument. Might be for the Air Force. Don't know. Still designing up here. But this is 2 days worth of work, counting all the painting and processing. So it's goes together pretty easy. But to make it look really, really nice, several hours of painting and prepping and preparing and clear coating. In fact, I even need to put a final clear coat on that entire piece because the frame doesn't have any clear on it. So this design and the one for the Marines will be, and I'm gonna make some modifications to the Marine file using some of the techniques that I used on this one. There we go. My hand out of the way, and I'm gonna improve the Marine file and get it changed and uploaded and sent out to everybody. But there's the Marines and the Army and more to come. So hopefully you found this informative, entertaining if not, and be sure you like, subscribe, and share with any of the other communities that you're in for the laser group. This was made on the Roly Automation Lasermatic XW, the Roly XW, Lasermatic XW. Phenomenal job. You got to see a little quick snippet there where I cut the frame out. Repeatability like no other laser out there for a desktop diode laser. Go over to my link, hobowithwood.com/Roly. Check them out. Use my link to purchase. That'll help me out a little bit too. Thank you for watching. I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood. I'm going to go call it a day and get some lunch, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm out.